What if I told you that the reason why so many people have a problem with anime in the first place is you? Yes, you, the person that's potentially watching this video right now. The you that is so going quickly to be on Twitter to complain about something that you just didn't like. That you, that's the reason why things are not necessarily going the way of how it should be when it comes to anime and just discussing it and just being, free to say what your opinion is without being murdered horrendously. And it's just and this all comes down to just straight up you. It's honestly a believable fact, considering the fact that anime is a lot more well known and a lot more accessible than it used to be way back in the early 2000s and 1990s. It's a lot of people that's watching it now. A lot of people watch it now, a lot of critiques that come through it, and a lot of people just have their very different opinions on it, and that's perfectly fine. The problem is when so many people come through, especially when it comes to shows of the ecchi genre or the fan service like moments in anime and the lolly type of things that happen when it comes to shows and stuff like that. That's when things kind of get really annoying and really pissy when it comes to Twitter and how people kind of operate there, if I'm being perfectly honest. And to be fair, a lot of the times it's sometimes the anime fans that are fickle about stuff when it comes down to things. They're not the only issue, but they are presenting a part of it. Mainly because one show that has fan service is perfectly fine, or just have a lot of ecchi moments, but then when you see another show that you don't know about, or you just start watching or something like that, you might not necessarily like it in any sort of degree, even though it does somewhat the exact same thing. And it's super weird, honestly. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then you also have the non-anime fans, or people that try to cash in on anime just to make a quick buck or something. Like, let's be honest, a lot of the OnlyFans girls that do cosplay, a lot of them come through and just randomly dress up as a popular character that people like, and then just proceeds to get money. Even if they don't necessarily like that character or even associate themselves with anime in general, you just start doing it because that's an easy cash grab. Simps like that will pay way lots of money just to see a bit of things that's probably not even revealing the actual body of the woman itself. And that's kind of where the train wreck kind of ends with that. No one really questions anything of the cosplayer or anything of the sort of what they might do, and if they actually enjoy anime as a whole, they don't question it. They just see what they like and that's about it, honestly. Or you might have that one type of anime fan who watch one show that doesn't do anything crazy. It might be popular or something that well known back in the day that people used to watch, and he enjoyed that show, or she enjoyed that show. I'm not judging. When it comes down to things, they might watch another show and then absolutely get mad about it because it has a lolly in it, or it has an ecchi moment in it, or it has fan service in it, or so on and so forth. And that is how normies are coming into the anime community. I'm being perfectly honest, because it's just like, they might come through and just see one thing that they like, and then when they start seeing everything else, that's when they start trying to get mad at it and start trying to ban things and start trying to raise up arguments online, where in reality it does not matter, if I'm being perfectly honest. We're trying to make studies and theses and all these other sorts to be like why this certain part of anime is bad and why should it be canned and all this type of stuff and so on and so forth, but never really thinking about, maybe is it just you, the person that's watching the show, that's potentially watching it on purpose just so you can complain about something? Is it really just a whole ass study that's actually out there, or is it just you? And my thing when it comes down to it, it wasn't like it wasn't a problem years ago, because it wasn't. And the main thing that kind of makes me angry about things now is that everything is a problem. You like the color blue? Well, that's some nonsense, because that means you must be some type of asshole person or something like that. Because I like the color red. Oh, you like the color red? You like the color red? Then that means you're an absolute evil monster, honestly. You cannot be trusted, or something of the sort. Anybody that has a different opinion now is just able to get murdered and just absolutely just not in the best of light in anything, in any shape or form. It just sucks, because I remember back in the day where people used to be like saying that, oh, yaoi is not the greatest thing because it's just two guys. Like, who wants to watch two guys? They're just being really sus with each other and stuff like that. Yet a lot of females, especially Asian females, love that yaoi shit. They still love it now, and it's perfectly fine, you know? But that was fun. It was fine. It was a discussion point. Now if you complain about, oh, well, I don't necessarily like yaoi because it's not up to my taste, also it's got 2 guys in it, I don't really care for that. Now people are gonna call you homophobic or something like that, because that's all people see now, especially in the West. That is like a super major thing, honestly, and that's one of the big reasons why shit is just not fun anymore. Because everything now has to be taken into a point where it's like, oh, we have to discuss the political aspect of it even harder, even though it's already there, you know, but let's go ahead and discuss it even more so and even harder than normal. And it's like, but why though? We don't necessarily need to do this. It's fictional content. Why are we so focused on the real world aspects of it when there's nothing real about it in the first damn place? Like, let's for instance, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. I used to try to get with this one girl back in high school, and for all intents and purposes, she liked a yaoi book, or a yaoi manga, or manhwa, or whatever it is. And essentially, I didn't understand her appeal to it, and I was just like, why are you reading this? This shit is just with 2 guys and stuff, it doesn't make sense, it's whack as hell, it's sus, that's all I'm thinking. And then, at the same time, I was like, you know what, you wanna read a yaoi manga? I'm gonna read me a yuri manga, see how you feel. And so, because I was dumb as hell, I decided to read a yuri manga. And I'm not gonna lie, I read Akuma no Riddle. Why did that slap though? Like, it actually genuinely slapped, and I actually like that story. I don't think it's my favorite manga. Granted, I never read like a ton of manga yet, but like, it's definitely up there because I did appreciate the story of what it was. It was actually kind of interesting, and it kept me reading from beginning to end. So, and the character designs are actually kind of nice on that show. I'm not necessarily gonna lie. The show, I would say more so you might want to avoid instead, you know, not really watching the anime. I would say you might want to read that one more than watch the anime. But I enjoyed it, you know? And it was like, what? Well, I didn't expect this nonsense. And it was fun though, you know? It was fun. I don't necessarily know where I was going with this talking point, but point is, people, I guess, are allowed to like certain things, and even if it's not to your taste, there might be something else that might, you know, show a little bit of something that might be piquing your interest, and then you can kind of understand why certain people like a certain aspect of anime. Because before, I didn't really get the whole point of yaoi, and I still on the fence of it because I don't really care for it like that, and I probably never will. But when I read that yuri manga of Akuma no Riddle, I understand where their liking towards it kind of comes from now. So I'm a little bit more open to the idea of, okay, maybe not all yaoi manga is sus manga or something like that, or it's not necessarily some whack material that, you know, isn't really good. And that's perfectly fine to have that kind of aspect and thinking point. But majority of people probably won't ever really think about that because they're like, but what about the political sense of it? In the real world, this probably would not go ahead and happen. Like, no shit, it's not real. Like, why are so many people so concerned with the aspect of it being a real concept or not? Again, we talked about this before, especially when we was talking about Hae-san and how he was on Trash Station's podcast, and how he was just giving like real world identity to anime, which again, anime is not meant to be real. And honestly, it's kind of sucks when anime does go a realism route because it's just boring. It's just boring, and it doesn't necessarily hit the anime boxes as you think it would. I'm not saying that it can never hit those boxes, and it shouldn't, because if an anime wants to do it, it can do it, it's fine. But at the same time, all anime shouldn't be replaced to be just that and be realistic. It's just boring. Because with that type of realism and wanting that in anime, that's when you get things that is basically going to get censored. Like in the West, there's plenty of times where people are genuinely okay with a character is being dressed up, well, a male character being dressed up, or just like being topless and straight up naked and all this type of stuff. Perfectly fine in the West. Doing that to a woman in the West absolutely is the greatest sin that you can ever see, and it's for some reason not necessarily something that is equally exposed in all that type of glory. However, in the East with Japan and how they kind of do anime and stuff, that's somewhat fine, a bit more lenient, you know, than the West, and you still have like the option of the guys being topless and whatever, but you also have the option, mainly in fiction, the females to be, you know, topless and stuff and whatever, and that's perfectly fine. Granted, you know, Japan does have its problems, especially with their weird sense of censorship in certain medias and things, but when it comes down to things, it's fine for a better point of it when it comes to the Japanese side of things versus the Western side of the world. And I wish that was a side of the West that would just honestly adopt it more and just be more open to it instead of being scared of tits, because we're so open to, things like drag shows and kids being a part of that and literally anything else that is not great. We are so open to that, but not open to the stuff that could be a little bit better and maybe might make the West a little bit more bearable, honestly. But I know you're probably screaming at me right now, because of course you do. But when it comes down to things, you're probably like, well, Jay, what does this have to do with anything of fan service in anime, or ecchi, or lollies, or anything of the sort? What does this have to do with it? Everything has to do with it. A part of the issue, I think, realistically, is possibly a part of the problem of why so many people have this weird ass hatred for, oh, certain things in anime is okay, or certain things in anime is not okay, and certain things like that. It's possibly because the Western side of the world is just culturally mixed to the point everything is kind of unacceptable and everything is perfectly fine at the same time. If we're being perfectly honest, and I'm just going to straight up say it, America really doesn't necessarily have a culture of its own. You know what the culture is? Everybody else's culture. That's literally what it is. It's literally a conglomerate of everybody else being on the same place in the same point in time, and everybody just doing different things, but no one can seem to possibly get along. The reason why I think the Japanese side of, fiction and media and stuff like that works is because everybody's kind of together. Everybody's kind of, fitting in the same book as they kind of should be, unlike, everything else in the West. I'm not necessarily saying that, there shouldn't be a difference in culture, because sometimes a difference in culture can be a good thing, but a good chunk of time, it's a bad thing. Because let's be honest, if there was a more difference in culture in Japan now, more than ever, to be perfectly honest, there's a good shot and a good chance that a lot of the anime that we see now would probably get either banned and censored and all that type of stuff, and it wouldn't necessarily be great for anyone or anybody, whether you're against anime or whether you're for it, honestly. Because what could happen in one country might just happen to another country as a whole. So when I see people talk about how certain ecchi shows are like, oh, they show nothing but boobs in this show, or they show nothing but women just being used in different ways in the show and whatever and stuff like that, it kind of makes me mad. I'm not necessarily gonna lie. The reason why I'm pretty much mad about it is because, again, it's that difference of culture. It's like, yes, shockingly, I know, right? A different culture doing something different than what everybody else is doing. I know. Completely insane, but it's a thing that happens. If you don't necessarily like it, that's fine. Guess what? That culture that you don't necessarily like, that part of anime that you don't necessarily like, there's other shows where it's easily able to, dismiss that part of it and watch shows that's just straight up serious, or shows that don't necessarily use that element in it. It's so easy to find those shows, yet people, I think, gravitate toward negativity so damn much and just gravitates it to an extreme degree, to the point it's just like, yeah, this show is absolutely sucks, but let me go watch another show to confirm my suspicions, even though your suspicions has already been confirmed, but you're just doing it anyway just because you either want clout or you just want to cause a mess for literally no reason. And it's because of these different opinions, and it's because of these people that constantly want to hate on shows with fan service and ecchi stuff and lollies in it. These are the reason why a lot of stuff just can't get by these days, and it's kind of annoying as hell, especially when there's potentially good stories that could be told using those elements, but they never really get used, or they don't really be so sought after because of how people kind of is, honestly. Fan service doesn't necessarily ruin a show. Don't get wrong, fan service can be done bad, but it doesn't necessarily ruin a show. Fire Force, possibly the greatest example of a show getting ruined by absolute many bunches of people, even though the show itself isn't inherently bad. Yes, we understand that Tamaki loses her top in almost every single episode, but it doesn't happen for every single scene though. It doesn't necessarily take away from when the anime wants to be serious and when the anime wants to be a complete joke of itself sometimes. I still love Fire Force. To this day, I will still argue in debates with you, saying that Tamaki losing her top in a damn show doesn't really take my eyes off the actual product itself or take my eyes off of what's going on. It's just a thing that happens, and it's just like, okay, that's cool, that's fine, I don't necessarily mind it, you know? And maybe sometimes you might need that damn break in the anime, because sometimes shit gets way too serious, and sometimes shit just don't have a moment to let the characters freaking breathe, or have a little bit of a moment to just chill out, honestly. And when Tamaki kind of does random shit like that, it's fine for me, you know? And anytime when you see Tamaki on screen, period, you already know comedy is gonna go down. Because that's what the anime of Fire Force expects you to build at this point. I get it if you maybe watched the first episode, you didn't understand what the hell was going on. And as you continue watching episodes, if you decide to continue from that point, you always have the option to stop. But when it comes down to things, if you continue down that point, you know Tamaki is the sex appeal of the show. She is the comic relief of the show. So anytime she's on screen, even for a fraction of a second, guess what? Something's gonna happen with her. But I also think it's also a problem because, like, when it comes down to things with people, how they watch shows, like, certain people might just watch shows, especially when it comes to this variety, as, like, they have to complete it. Once I start it, there's no backing out, even though you have full time and access to just back out whenever the hell you want to. People just don't necessarily do it. And it might not even be for an ecchi show. For instance, I watched Hitman Reborn years ago, as back in high school, trying to get into it because I thought Hideyoshi was actually one of the most swaggiest protagonists of all shonen. I genuinely still do think that, because he looks damn cool, especially when he's in his reborn state. But when it comes down to things, as much as I enjoyed him in J-Stars, and as much as I enjoyed his design and character, I could not get my ass to finish reading, or not reading, but watching Hitman Reborn. I tried. My ass stayed in for 27 episodes to try to get my ass to watch the show. And guess what? I never could. Even though I watched 27 episodes, I have an idea of what's going on in the show, but when it comes down to things, I just couldn't get into it. I don't necessarily know why. It's just possibly something with me. I don't know why. I don't know necessarily how I can get into Hitman Reborn, but it's just not for me. Even though the characters were fine, the story was fine, everything was kind of fine. Maybe was the show a bit slow? Possibly. Maybe that's the reason why. But at the very same time, it was still a good show, and I still would recommend somebody to watch it because it's heat. I personally do think that. But at the same time, once I realized after 27 episodes, literally watching one whole ass season of the show, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not obviously going to get into the show because I just physically can't for some reason, so I'm not going to bother watching it anymore. And honestly, if I knew I was going to not watch the show, I would just stop at episode 1 or 2, because at that point, at least I would know, okay, let's go find another show to go watch and stuff like that, instead of watching 27 episodes of a show I would no longer care about. Even though, again, the concepts of the show and whatever it was, it's still something good and it's something I really liked, even though I couldn't necessarily get into it. And we just need to know when to cut ourselves off too. That's like another point too, especially when it comes to the shows that you might not necessarily like, and you might have a different opinion on the show and you might actually hate it or something like that. Don't watch it and continue to watch it, hate watching it. Just watch it, and if it's not for you, then dip off. It's perfectly fine. No one's gonna harm you. No one's gonna harm you or blame you for just stop watching a show, because it might not just be for you. And when it comes to shows where it has ecchi elements into it, it's perfectly fine if you stop watching a certain show because it has it in it. There's, again, plenty of different shows where it's not present at all. But the fact that people keep continuing to hate watch it and then, you know, try to cosplay after certain characters, even though they have a problem with the characters' ages, then why are you cosplaying the ages of the characters and whatever? Still, nonetheless, it's like there is plenty of different alternatives that you can have. So if you're gonna watch, you know, a show, and if it's not to your taste, again, tune it off and then like watch something else. That's perfectly fine. And the reason why it's still so prominent with ecchi shows and fan service shows is because there is a market for it, and people will always cash in into those markets. Like, let's say the lolly market, for example. That shit is a thing. That shit is something that people really genuinely still like and wants to see stuff of. Even if it is something that a lot of people on Twitter will give you hell over, it's something that people want to see. And if someone's gonna want to see it, someone's gonna try to cash in on it. Genshin Impact is an excellent game at cashing in on the lolly market. You want to know why? Because there's countless of, well, there's not countless, but there's a good chunk of lolly-ass characters that's in that game, ranging from Klee, Nahida, Chi-Chi, Sayu, Dori. And, you know, like there's good amounts of characters that, you know, it's not like a lot of characters, but it does have a fair amount of lolly characters that's in the game. You want to know why some people pull those characters? Because either they're really good in the game, you know, they might actually have really good abilities. Some of them because they're really cute. Some of them because we have dirty thoughts about those characters. Not necessarily gonna lie. So when it comes down to things, it's perfectly fine to have that market there. Plus, again, it's not really like it's a real thing, you know, it's fictional. It's not necessarily something that's really gonna go out and just walk with two legs and start doing some crazy ass shit, you know. It's not necessarily having a mind of its own. It's not the case. So when it comes down to things, it's just a market that's there that people are going to enjoy. What you want to do about it? In fact, if you haven't really realized it, lolly has been there for a very long time, and it's the backbone of anime itself. A lot of the concepts and fan service things that happen in anime, you could pretty much thank a lolly for that, considering the fact that it's the reason why that a lot of shit happens. It's the reason why you got VTubers. It's the reason why you got like some fan service moments in, you know, anime and stuff. You know, you got underage characters that did stuff, you know, to make certain things happen. You know, the reason why there was yaoi, well, when it comes down to things, the reason why lolly even exists was because of yaoi content, because of those boy love stories. And so why don't we take a female into that and just do the same thing? If they're going to use shota characters like that, let's use lolly characters like that. And that's kind of how it came to be, honestly. But no one really wants to talk about that because they're all insane. But when it comes down to things, a lolly has done a lot of shit. It has been a part of the anime just like fanservice has for a long ass time. And when it comes down to things, it is what it is. If that's a part of media that you don't necessarily like, then feel free to go somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. But it's just only a problem when people constantly complain to other people or just try to get on someone's neck over something that is not that big of a deal, and it's just very annoying. There's honestly a lot of things about ecchi that is just stuff that just really up my alley for me. And to be perfectly honest, I like ecchi mainly because it does challenge what anime can be without going down the route of being a Gentai. Inner Species Reviewer is a perfect example of that too, because when it comes down to things, you know, you didn't think a show like that would ever exist on TV and stuff like that. You probably wouldn't. You probably think it'll be just the most biggest Gentai ever, yet it was a TV show and somehow it made it through, and it was actually really freaking funny and actually really decent for what it was, you know. And then, you know, while it was a show that was mainly more focused on sex and things of that nature, it still was a fun show for what it was. And sometimes you don't even need ecchi shows just for constant sex and stuff like that. Sometimes when you have an ecchi show, and this what happens a lot of the time with characters, sometimes you have a fan service moment or a bit of sexual appeal when it comes to certain characters, but they're badass. Like Madaka is one of those characters who has gigantic boobs, but when it comes down to things, still can whoop your ass. And that's like the biggest thing. She ain't focused about her boobs. Yes, in the beginning she was focused about, you know, not necessarily caring about how she was naked and all that sort of stuff, but it wasn't like the direct drive of the show or anything. It was more so just about how she kind of fits in with society and how she kind of can deal with society in certain ways. Then when you have like shows like Demon Slayer, or the time where Nezuko basically went full on demon and beat the shit out of that one damn demon chick, and when she went bonkers, everybody was so up and riled up with her cleavage being open and stuff like that. But let's be honest, the main takeaway here isn't her fat ass booba. It's mainly the big takeaway is her whooping ass. Like, bruh, do you mean tell me? So you mean to tell me you would rather focus on her boobs more than you getting your ass beat? I'm kind of trying to fight for my life here, honestly. Like, don't get me wrong, if the booba agrees to me, I'm happy. But at the same time, I don't want to die to a demon today, so that's kind of how I feel. High School DxD, while it does focus a lot on the sexual content and has like characters that does a lot of, you know, moments of fan service and whatever, still nonetheless, it does have an actually decent story, and it actually has a decent cast of characters with actual decent character development and stuff like that. And it's perfectly fine. It's a nice, well-balanced breakfast of your fan service and your actual plot. It's actually a really good show, and that's why people still like that show to this day. It's fine and it's good and it's balanced. Hell, even Mirai Nikki with Yuno Gasai, who is honestly a bonkers ass character, yet she still does a lot of badass things, even though it's for the sake of insanity. You know? Yeah, she might have giant jiggly green bikini ass booba, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she's not crazy, right? Like that doesn't necessarily make any type of, sense to be like, oh man, I'm so focused on the booba, let's just completely ignore everything else about this character. It's like you focus on the one aspect and then get blindsided by something else that's obviously there. Like, if I'm in the middle of the road and you think, oh man, this pavement looks really good, a car comes through and is about to hit me, do you really think that it's not that obvious that a car is coming on the road? I'm on the damn road, mother effer. You're going to get hit. Move your bitch ass away. So when it comes down to things, of course, there is a lot of shows that has, again, fan service moments or ecchi moments and stuff like that. And it's enjoyable for some people and it's nice and, warm and great, honestly. But when it comes down to a lot of other people that don't necessarily see it coming, how do you not when it's literally right there? Hell, some of the shows have tags where it has it on there. So you getting blindsided by it is very, very weird to me. It doesn't necessarily make any kind of sense. Like, one of the biggest takeaways of anything when it comes to fan service is that, yeah, you can have a naked ass female on screen. You can have your, ecchi moments where a girl's panties is just being shown off and everything. You can have moments where a lolly character is being put into some of those situations too, but at the same time, that doesn't take away from the badassness from those characters, or it doesn't take away anything from those characters at all. It's just a moment that kind of happens, either A, just to make the characters look hotter than they usually are, or B, just to, here you go. It is what it is, honestly, especially depending on what type of audience the anime is targeted for. Hell, there's even games where, fan service is a main feature of the game, but it also displays some badass females into the game, like Senran Kagura, which, honestly, Senran Kagura got done dirty by Sony, and that's why we don't necessarily get Senran Kagura anymore. But when it comes down to things, it was still a fun game. There is still very much characters in that series that I absolutely enjoy, and still to this day would like to smash. But when it comes down to things, we ain't never gonna get it because Sony, again, ruins everything. And when it comes down to it, it doesn't necessarily take away anything from what I'm seeing or playing or watching, honestly. Because they have their serious moments in their shows. They have their serious moments when they need to do things and stuff like that. It's gonna be there because I know what I'm getting into. But at the same time, it's fun because that's what I like and that's what I enjoy, honestly. I like kind of having ecchi shows and then shows that have like the story with the etchiness, and then see what kind of anime you can actually get. A lot of times shows don't necessarily end up in the ways it should, but there's also shows that where it ends up pretty damn decently, and it's nice. And a lot of times when you have like main male characters too, that is around a bunch of females and there's a bunch of ecchi moments and fan service and harem stuff, like, to be perfectly honest, I would rather you're gonna see a lot of times like a character that's going to basically be like, oh man, booba, or something like that, or be afraid of booba because it's just a comedic thing. To be honest, it could be even used as an element of the show where it's just like, yeah, realistically, I would, try to clap these females, or realistically, I wouldn't be so damn scared of it, It doesn't necessarily put me in the shoes of the character, which a lot of anime fans try to do for some reason, but it's just like, if this was a real situation, if I had Rhea Scrimmery in front of my face right now, I am clapping that ass. I'm not gonna hold back. I am not gonna be Issei telling myself, oh, I just want to touch a cell of booba. I'm not just touching that. I'm going in heavy waters. That's what, even with my fanfiction series I tell on YouTube, is like, like Jay is not afraid to go out ahead and just like, touch some booba. He's going for the full package. He's going to smash a woman, and he's going to do it properly and not gonna hesitate at all. In fact, he might initiate some of that shit. Why not? Because every single protagonist that he has seen has literally bitched out or not necessarily done the deed yet. Just do it and have it be done and just go about your day. Like, let's be perfectly honest. We have a waifu that we all like. You mean to tell me if she was right there in front of you right now, as real as she can be, you wouldn't try to smash that? You wouldn't try to, clap cheeks if you only had one chance? you wouldn't take that? I'm pretty sure majority of people or majority of men would absolutely take that opportunity. Females too. I'm not judging, but when it comes down to things of all of everything I talk about when it comes to this entire video, it's just that whether it's anime ecchi stuff or whether it's fan service or whether it's lolly stuff or whatever, everyone has an opinion on everything, and it's fine to have an opinion. You're free to like whatever it is you like, but you shouldn't really be too judgmental about it, you know? Just because something that happens in anime that isn't realistic or could be essentially realistic in anime, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate automatically to the person that watches the show. That doesn't necessarily mean that every ecchi anime that every man sees is gonna make some man go outside right now and be like, "Hey, take off your clothes, woman, or I'll strip you down myself," or something like that. Not every single person that watches anime is an insane, crazy person, right? Even when it comes to lolly, not every single person that watches a lolly or shota anime, when it comes down to things, they're not necessarily gonna be like, "Yeah, let's go ahead and sneak over to that school real quick. I got some ideas." Like, no one's gonna do that. Like, if you do, you have a problem and you have issues and you need therapy or go to jail when it comes down to things. But that's not how that works. Everybody's so thinking that, oh, if I do this, this thing will end up following. That's not the case. That's never really been the case. The only thing and only reason why it is the case is because you put it in your mind to think it is the case. So when it comes down to things, if you don't like ecchi or fan service or lollies or anything like that, perfectly fine. Do whatever it is you like to do. However, when it comes to things of the sort, there is always going to be a market for it. Sex does sell. It is a thing. And even though women nowadays, or just people in general nowadays, don't necessarily like to show off their bodies or like to do certain things that was perfectly fine years ago, there's always still going to be a market for that stuff too, regardless whether you like it or not. It just is what it is. Where you look at it realistically or where you look at it fictionally, it doesn't necessarily matter. People are going to like what they like, and that is what it is. It's just the be all end all of everything when it comes to, you know, how human people just work, you know? Because there's going to be many different multitudes of reasons why people might like certain things. Certain people might like, you know, lolly content because they're cute and they're adorable and stuff like that, or the art style looks good, or the artwork itself looks good, and that's why they jerk their dicks to it. Or maybe you might have an ecchi anime or a fan service moment that happens with Tamaki or something like that, and people like Tamaki because she's just fun, or she's actually funny, or, you know, people just like the moments with her in it, honestly, because that's their favorite character, or other things of the sort. We ain't gotta say, I ain't trying to say that you need to be absolutely a degenerate or, you know, be absolutely brainwashed to the brim to only consume those shows because that's the only peak shows that is out there, because it's not. There's just a whole host of people, especially on Twitter and mainly Twitter, where it's just a whole bunch of hatred for everybody and anything who likes a shred of a different opinion than someone else. And it doesn't necessarily make a whole bunch of sense. Like, it really doesn't. So the point is of this entire video is just let people enjoy things. It's the most basic thing that you can let happen, and it's the most basic thing and basic concept that everybody should be able to grasp, but we're so damn blinded by negativity constantly all the time to the point this video probably won't even reach a lot of people. This video probably won't even hit the mark that it probably should. But when it comes down to things, it's just very annoying. It's just very annoying when people just can't enjoy what they want to enjoy, even though there's literally no problem about it and it's perfectly fine, you know? Again, it's fictional content. There's no real reason to put real life elements into fiction. Your moralities in fiction should not matter. You know why? Because it's not real. Every single thing that we live out in this reality should not necessarily have to translate into that one, because again, it's not real. At the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're mad at lolly because, you know, someone jerking off to it. It's not necessarily going to harm anything, much less even if you were to try to get someone's get on someone's case about it. Does it really save anybody? Does it really stop anything? No, it really does not. And same thing with the ecchi and fan service. If you were to try to stop someone from watching it or try to ban it outright, do you really think someone's going to go out their way to, you know, really go out and harass a woman? I don't really, after watching that, I don't really think so. And does that really stop from people who probably has never watched anime in a day in their life, stop them from actually harming a kid or actually harming a woman? No, it does not. Because I can tell you for sure, people from back in the day before anime was even introduced to the West at all, or even at all, period, before anime was even a thing, I guarantee you, they didn't need to watch a show or a fictional piece of content to do horrible things to a woman or a kid, or just anybody in general, honestly. They don't need that content. I guarantee you, there's plenty of people who has never watched anime before, who probably would do something bad or have done something bad to somebody, regardless of anything, and have literally no influence whatsoever over a piece of fictional content. Let's just be realistic though, you know? So when it comes down to things, again, just let people enjoy things and just let it be what it is, you know? It's not that big of a deal to be hating on somebody just because you don't agree with what it is. If you don't agree with what it is, fine, watch something else. But people are gonna just enjoy their big ass boobs, their small ass, lolly ass characters, and just have cunny and just boobs all around. It is what it is, and you just have to kind of deal with it. But anyway, that's basically all I really want to talk about for this one. My voices are gone again. Second time in a row. So when it comes down to things, hopefully you did enjoy it, honestly. Also, for the people that watched the last video too with the story, also I have to say that you are our true champions and Kohas and all that, because y'all are just Chad as hell. So I do appreciate it. And when it comes down to things, it just made me want to do more stories like that too. So, you know, may long live Ecchi and Lolly and stuff like that. I'm perfectly down with it. But anyway, that's basically everything I really want to say. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow me on the Twitter, saying like to do this channel, Patreon, this video as well. Until then, it's your boy Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.